Welcome to episode 105 of the Omnigamers Club podcast, the podcast for games on all platforms, including creating a mansion-sized escape room and forcing your nephew to solve it. I am Daniel Winter.
And I'm Mark USA. Hello.
Hello, Mark. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Mother's Day, a meal, delicious, just happened. Yeah, all's well.
Excellent. Yeah, very
Happy
exciting.
Happy Mother's Day to all the
Yes,
mothers who celebrate.
absolutely. Very exciting dentist appointment, Mother's Day dentist over here. So nothing particularly exciting to report there. So I think we'll get straight into the exciting stuff.
Let's
As
do it.
hinted just there, we're going to be a little bit of a return to our original format, with both covering one game in detail today. That will be Blueprints. But before that, we've got a little bit of our appetizer to discuss.
Right. The appetizer is where we talk about a little bit of goings on, maybe industry news or news to us, just stuff that's happening in the real time. So, yeah, why don't you start us off, Daniel?
Sure. I've been backing away from listing crowdsourced projects lately for various reasons. I think particularly right now, it's a particularly risky place, both for creators and backers, but those creators do need the support more than ever. And I think I'm still going to reserve any sort of editorial comment on whether you should back something or not. But in the interest of letting people know about projects that are out there that you may want to look into, there are a couple of local projects on Kickstarter right now, both of which are sort of reprints, so you can, in theory, find the original version to try for yourself. That is the first one, Reforest, Old Growth. So I'm pretty sure I've discussed the base game of Reforest previously. It's a small deck of cards. Looks very reminiscent of Wingspan, basically stacking trees and plants to create an ecosystem. I've only played it solo, but it was a neat little experience there. But there is a new standalone expansion to that available right now from Sebastian Bernier Wong at Firestarter. We've discussed some of their other games that they've released over at Terminal City. They've demoed those there before. And on a similar note, we also have Seas of Havoc First Mates, which is an expansion to Seas of Havoc, which I have not played. But that is designed by Peter Gorniak and also by Sebastian Bernier Wong. So he's being quite prolific there. So both of these are expansions, but also including reprints of base games. If you're interested in some local Vancouver board game,
Very nice. It must be a hard time to be a creator right now, an independent creator.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I don't have a lot of news, although I'm just going to briefly touch upon a situation that happened between now and previous episode releasing. So this news came about like maybe the day after we released our last episode publicly. So it came to our attention that DCC publisher Goodman Games has re-entered work with a licensor. I think their company name is called Judges Panel.
Judges Guild.
Judges Guild, sure. And they basically are an old school D&D creator, and they've partnered with Goodman Games to put out one of their old campaign books or something like that as a new Kickstarter. And is only news because basically this Judges Guild has been known to, in the past, share some really questionable hate-related speech, particularly anti-Semitism and kind of pro-Nazi-ish dog whistle stuff. And not only is that bad, but Goodman Games released a statement. This was years ago when this information first came to light, saying, hey, we're not going to work with these people again. And suitably, everyone was happy that they made that statement. And then, lo and behold, just this past week, they said, hey, we're putting out stuff from Judges Guild again. And of course, people noticed. And they put out a subsequent news release, and it was pretty unsatisfactory language. It said something like, hey, this is just business. We had a contract and we have to fulfill it, or something to that end. I will let you seek out that information. I think who was it? One of the independent news sources.
Possibly Rascal. I don't
Rascal.
recall exactly.
Yeah, I think it was probably Rascal, to be honest. One of the independent news sources put out the all the information there. So judge for yourself whether that's worth your attention or not. We definitely thought it was. And, I don't think I endorsed DCC as a product last episode, but just the fact that we put out content about it is concerning. I regret that fact, knowing that information now. And if there was any sense from anyone listening that we endorse that product, we do not. I do not. And I will not be purchasing any products of that type unless they clean up their acts. So this is regrettable.
Yeah, there's been a lot of sort of vague, wishy-washy excuses. It's hard to know exactly what the reasoning is there. There's lots of rumors that I don't want to commit to anyone reasoning here, but it seems like there was some kind of contract in place from it's a long-standing Kickstarter campaign from years ago that apparently went unfulfilled. That it's somehow tied to that. But in the grand scheme of things, look, we discussed last episode about being more intentional about who you support and the games you buy, and I don't think there's any excuse for working with bigots, basically. No amount of money, no amount of tradition, no game is important enough to warrant that, I will say.
Yeah, the old saying goes that if you let one Nazi drink at your bar, you're a Nazi bar. So I don't want to frequent any Nazi bars.
Exactly.
Back to happier news, perhaps, on your end, Daniel?
Yes. Okay. So here's something I have actually played. So one of our very first episodes that we covered a game called Citizen Sleeper, a video game. And I'm still playing through the sequel that came out late last year, sort of slowly working my way through that, struggling with the old attention span there. But this last week, it was called Citizen Sleeper Day. I'm assuming it was some kind of anniversary of maybe the original's release, perhaps. But as part of that, the designer Gareth Damian Martin released a free print and play game. It's called Spindlejack. Spindlejack being sort of space courier roles in the new in the sequel, and so it's quite interesting in terms of this. It was released on itch.io, and I've seen it referred to both as a TTRPG and a board game. And it's interesting to see the approach to this sort of game obviously from a more TTRPG philosophy, the game design, as opposed to like from a board game designer. There's some interesting approaches to how you approach a game in terms of more focus on theme and sort of vibes than sort of hard balanced mechanics than perhaps you would from a sort of a board game designer. And this is very much is coming from that. I know Citizen Sleeper has been originally envisioned as something of a TTRPG. And we discussed it in terms of being a board game, but in hindsight, having played what's it called, Blade in the Dark, like in hindsight, it is extremely Blade in the Dark peeled there. So that said, I printed this off. It's a solo game. I played through a round of that, and it's playing with some interesting ideas. That is sort of resource management. You're sort of balancing time with and trying to earn credits, going on these jobs, traveling around this physical map of the space station that you're sort of traveling around, making deliveries, and it's absolutely, it sort of fulfills the tension of the sort of race against time from the video game, in terms of you've the clock is ticking down. You've only got 10 units of time to get to the destination, but you've also got these little mini games. Whenever you go to an intersection, you've got all these haulers that you're represented by dice on a grid. You try and navigate around these haulers, and there's this fascinating little sort of tactile movement puzzle of sort of drifting and grinding around these sort of space haulers. Feels a little sort of Jet Set Radio, perhaps. So surprisingly sort of thematic and immersive in that sense. I will say I didn't find it particularly engaging in terms of, like, I very quickly started to hit deliveries where I had zero chance of fulfilling it. That I just did not have enough time unless I rolled perfectly on every single roll. And then it was a sort of a downhill slide from there. And even then, you do develop, well, this is the optimal way of solving this, and it's just slightly different setup each time. A lot of fiddly upkeep in how you set it up each time to get through each intersection. So I don't think it's not a long-term stayer here. It is a free print and play game, so take that for what you will. It's an interesting design experiment in terms of representing the theme and vibes from that video game. Yeah, it's great for a little standalone experience if you want to experiment with that. And I mean, it represents the grind, both good and bad, I would say.
Yeah, I was reminded as you were saying that I really enjoyed Citizen Sleeper 1. Obviously, we had our whole episode talking about it, so that world is definitely of interest to me. I should also shout out that basically the creator of Citizen Sleeper did a actual play role-playing session set in the Citizen Sleeper universe
That's right.
with
Yes.
Quinn's Quest creator and host Quinton Smith, and they did it in the I think it was, I have it right here, in the Blades in the Dark based system Cyberpunk.
That's right. Yes.
CBR PNK. And I think you were mentioning Blades in the Dark, but the one that we covered in our episode was Scum and Villainy,
Yes.
so the sci-fi based one. So those episodes, I think there was like a one shot plus a follow up sort of like mission debrief episode on YouTube are well worth checking out if you just kind of love the Citizen Sleeper verse and want to hear more, and maybe you could see like the inspiration for the designer of Citizen Sleeper the video game really like kind of getting their eyes open towards tabletop RPGs. Obviously they I'm sure they had tons of experience with tabletop RPGs before. It's very evident in the design of that video game and probably this free-to-play game as well. One more thing I should mention that I don't think I mentioned in the episode of Citizen Sleeper that we did is I was reminded of an older PC sci-fi based kind of role-playing dice game. Have you ever heard of something called Tharsis?
Yes. Yeah, I think actually friend of the show, Quadrain, I'm pretty sure I saw him stream it once upon a time.
Yeah, Tharsis is really cool. It's a few years old now, and I saw it recently on Switch on sale for the Nintendo Switch platform. So I own it on Steam. You can regularly find it for $10 or less. And it's really cool. It's all about survival with limited resources,
much more lethal
tension, right? There's stuff, literal stuff like cannibalism potentially going on with dwindling resources, desperate situations, and
more in the mothership
allocating
vibe of space survival, I think.
Yeah, allocating your dice. So there's a whole related world of sci-fi dice based role-playing game, PC game crossovers.
There was also a solo TTRPG, an official Citizen Sleeper. I think it was about like a solo journaling TTRPG from Lost in Cult. It was like I don't think it's available anymore. Unfortunately, it was like a promo with an art book that I had wanted to get. It was too expensive, but that seems like more engaging with the themes and characters in that world, which would have been fun. And I believe the designer has indicated that the plan is for the third Citizen Sleeper to be a TTRPG.
Yeah, that better happen because that world kind of begs to be explored further, and for players to be able to kind of expand what it is to live in that world. And I think number 2 already kind of lets you
blows
play
it out
multiple like character classes in different directions, right?
It does blow open that world and expands it quite a lot. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, well, I'm going to leave my updates there because I was going to mention some frustrations with Nintendo's virtual game cards again. I think I've kind of covered that topic to death. Let's just say it's not a super pleasant experience. But no more complaints are needed.
I see all these Nintendo Directs, and as soon as I see them just trying to describe how simple it is to do this virtual card, I just hear white noise. Basically, it's like I'm not going to do that.
I'm a little disillusioned with Nintendo, to be honest. This whole Nintendo Switch 2 situation has got me down. I know that international tariffs, trade wars are not their fault per se, but it seems like Nintendo's zagging where they would have zigged in previous years with the direction of the Switch 2 console in general. Seems like they're trying to compete with the powerful devices of the mainstream consoles. And it's unfortunate because it doesn't have that same creative kind of bootstrapping spirit that the previous generations did. But hey, that's a discussion for another time.
Yeah. My daughter did see. We happened by a GameSpot yesterday, and my daughter saw that there's a Switch 2 coming. There's another Mario Kart coming, and it comes out right on her birthday. Fortunately, still waiting for that email, so we'll see how good of a birthday that ends up being.
Yeah, $800 later or whatever Canadian. That'll be fun, I'm sure, for everyone's wallet pocketbooks. Okay, I'm good for news. How about yourself?
Ready to call the dinner bell and have our main course?
That's right. For the first time, we're tackling one big ticket game, the two of us combined.
At
Let's
least
jump
first
into it.
time since our new format, but yes.
There you go. In honor of talk covering one type of game again, what type of game is this, Daniel?
Well, I mean that's the question, isn't it? The real puzzle is that this is a basically a puzzle game slash rogue light. I want to say, missing with a bunch of genres. Also perhaps some board game genres there.
Yeah, a little
But
bit adventure gamey too. We talked about adventure games last couple of episodes as well. That definitely is in there.
and I guess to be clear, we are talking about blueprints. And I should say, just in case you're not, when I say the word blueprints, you probably want to write it down and look at the words, and you will realize that it has a double meaning. The puzzle has already begun.
There you go. Yeah, we were keeping the title of the episode a mystery from our listeners, but we've revealed it all. Yes, so this game is by developer Doggo Bomb, from publisher, really quirky, interesting publisher Raw Fury, and directed by Tonda Ross.
I believe it is largely a solo project as well, released on April 10th, 2025. So still fairly hot off the presses here.
Yeah, I think PS5 and Windows Xbox Series, but not Switch, potentially.
It'll be there eventually.
Hopefully. I mean, it should be able to run. The graphics are not that intense. But anyways, okay, so I think, did we agree we're going to do a spoiler section?
Perhaps, yeah. I think we'll save that for the end. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's going to be hard not to spoil some basic concepts, perhaps a couple of early puzzles. But I mean, it is a sort of game where you kind of want to go in not knowing as much as possible and let yourself be surprised. But I don't think it's going to break the experience if you know some of the early things to expect.
Right. So for anyone that is highly concerned about being spoiled about a game like this, it is full of mysteries, and you could even beat the game without solving most of the puzzles. So let's just say that we're going to have a hard spoiler wall later in the episode. We'll shout it out repeatedly, so you will know in advance. But we will be talking about like at least the basic premise of the game, and then some of the fundamental mechanics of the game at very least, and our general feelings. We'll try not to expose any parts of the deeper story beyond the first day of the gameplay. And not too many of the puzzles either.
Okay, so
All right, let's dive into it.
do you want to give us a rundown of the story and
Yeah, so once
approaching?
again, you mentioned the name of the game. It's Blueprints, the color blue, and prince as in son of a monarch or something like that. So the basic fundamental premise, which you'll learn from any trailer, is that you're a young person who stands to inherit the mansion of their grandfather, I think it is.
Their uncle, or great
Okay.
uncle, I think.
Upon a death, and the kid's parents are still alive, but they don't help out. So this kid has to, on their own, solve the mystery and find the hidden 46th room in a 45-room mansion. So the cool part of that is that somehow magic exists in the world, or at least the magic to mystically reshape the insides of the layout of a mansion.
Because it's clear that everyone is experiencing the mansion in the same way, right? The rooms are moving around day by day.
That's right, and no one seems to raise an eyebrow at this. Your purpose in the game is to find this 46th room by entering the antechamber, which is at the end of the overall building layout. So when you play most of the game, you will see the kind of the boundary of the building, which is made up of 5 columns of 9 ranks. So you can imagine a grid, 9 by 5, that adds up to 45 spaces. And of course, there's the antechamber, which leads to that hidden room at the end. So you start at the bottom, you work your way up to the top. And how do people add rooms?
Well, as you do with blueprints, you draft them. So each time you open a door, basically you're presented with 3 options, and that is somewhat randomly pulled from a larger pool of potential of rooms. I think there's more than 46 in total. There's quite a large selection. It'll give you 3 to choose from, and you pick one of those, and it will plop it down instantly, and that room is now populated, and you can walk around it and poke at some puzzles and take it from there.
Yeah, that's right. So most of the time, you're going to be interacting in the world in a first-person perspective. So you see the space around you, but you can always call up the map and look at the layout of the building from the top-down view. And of course, that's where the secondary meaning, the fun blueprints comes in, because you're drafting room layouts, plopping them down into the overall printed plan of the space. And essentially you can't adjust the rooms once you place them down. So each of the rooms, imagine like they're sort of Carcassonne tiles. They can have from 1 to 4 exits because they're square tiles. So the one exit might just lead to a dead end. And if you're going to do that, you might as well place it in a corner of the layout or at the end of an area that you had already blocked off. Whereas most of the time you're going to be wanting to place rooms that have multiple exits to give you more opportunities to explore further north as far as the layout is concerned. So because you don't want to block yourself in, because you're going to have a very short run if you happen to do that.
So I think we should discuss in detail sort of the puzzle and the roguelite sort of side, the two sides of the coin here. But before we get into those, perhaps we could just talk a little more about like the aesthetic and some of the sort of some of the overall elements going into this game. I just wanted to say, like, there is a lovely art style to this. It's very sort of, I mean, it all feels very blue shaded, like blue tints, I guess, to the game, but almost cel shaded. It's sort of sketched out, a little bit like sort of Borderlandsy vibe. Like you can, there's no clear, crisp lines. They all feel like they're sketched and not quite fully fleshed out. It is a little strange, and it's like even some of the fonts don't feel consistent. Like they feel like there's like 3 different fonts in each word sometimes. When it's sort of very slapdash, and it feels like you're walking through the literal blueprint of a larger mansion, basically. So there's some interesting touches there. I don't know if you had any thoughts on the sort of visual aesthetic.
Yeah, I really like the visual aesthetic. In fact, it sets you in a mood. Like you said, the blue has a general sense of melancholy, and I think you feel that a lot as you play this game. Quite often, it's like rainy or overcast outside. You can see through the windows
You got the
in
sad
various
noir
areas.
sax soundtrack.
That's right. You got some very moody music going on. Overall, the color palettes actually do cover a range, but they're all muted, like you said.
Yeah.
They are all generally muted and not so vibrant. And then there's a lot of like use of shadow. You know, there's dark, shady corners. There's kind of some rooms are shabbier than others, and then there's a grime here or there. And some of the and maybe some of the corridors are boarded up, for instance, especially if you have say a door exit go butt up against a flat wall. You see that they've kind of been bricked over, kind of like that. What is that mansion, the ghost mansion or whatever?
The trailer House on the Hill.
No, I'm talking about the real world one from
the
Winchester, the
Winchester House.
Manor.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Very
Sort of.
haphazard. Yeah.
Yeah, it inspires you or gives you that sense of a little bit of ethereal, unnatural things going on. And indeed, it is unnatural because the layout keeps changing.
It is fun to see the sort of elements spontaneously sort of spawn in, and the mansion adjusting to that with the doors opening or closing respectively.
Yeah, I like the overall aesthetic, like you were saying, not just through the 3D graphics of the rooms and the objects within the rooms, but even the things you pick up. There's old photographs, there's notebooks, there's documents, there's old maps, there's notebooks, there's diagrams, there's all manner of things that have a very kind of sort of handcrafted aesthetic to them. There's like a old children's kind of clubhouse room that looks like a log cabin, kind of with like a fake campfire within it. There's a very kind of whimsical flair to it. So there's a lot going on here, and it definitely sets a tone, and that's overall sort of quite a bit whimsical, melancholy. It almost verges on a little unnerving. I don't think it ever goes to kind of the horror scale, but it does feel like, ooh, what's going to be around the next corner? A tiny bit.
It does feel it's definitely haunted in some fashion. Okay, so shall we start talking about some of the puzzles, perhaps, and how they tie in?
How about maybe just like the fundamental mechanics of the game?
Okay.
So we didn't cover that. You start the game with a limited number of footsteps as a kind of like a resource. So I forget the number. I think it's like 50 to start.
50 to start.
Yeah, and the core premise of the game is that each time you move across a threshold into the next room, that's at least one footstep gone. Some rooms, in fact, charge you more than one footstep, depending on the kind of special nature of that room. But generally, you cross the threshold, it costs you one, and you cross right back into that first room, it costs you one more. So already you got a sense of tension building out as you explore the mansion. You have other resources such as coins. I think you start with a very minuscule amount of coins, like 3 or 5
I don't think you start
coins.
with any, do you?
Possibly, I don't know. You find coins throughout, and then I think at some point you gain like a little stipend, and then you might start a run with a number of coins. Another resource you have is gemstones. You find gemstones hidden throughout the house, and you also find keys. And the keys generally, for the most part, are standardized. So most keys open most doors, but there are a few keys that only open specific doors.
And to
And
be
those are
clear,
harder.
when you spawn in a new room, the doors of that room have a random chance of being locked. With a few exceptions, any door might be locked, and you need a key to get through there. There's various ways of restricting access to particular rooms. Like the gems, for example, when you're drafting the rooms, some of them may have an additional cost. For the more specialized rooms, you may need to pay between 1 to 3 gems to draft that. Or if you don't have any gems, adding a more common room instead.
Right. So that those aspects of resource management also add a sense of tension to the game, and also a little bit of risk, because you're always taking a risk as to what you spend your money or resources on. Do I spend it to open this a key where I could open a room, or should I open this chest instead? And the chest might have a special tool in it, or more gems, or more keys. We'll talk about tools in a little moment, but those are the core resources, and then money. You generally don't need money when you enter rooms, but there are rooms that act as shops where you can buy specific things, and some of those are those aforementioned tools, or quite often it's for buying food. And food kind of refuels you and gives you additional steps. So a small piece of food might give you 2 or 3 steps, and a big meal might give you like 20 extra steps.
And some of these items are spawning in known locations. Like there's the den, which always has a gem in it. Others are being spawned randomly, and usually in like odd little corners. So you enter a room and have to then scour look under the couch and behind the lamp, and then see if there's any coins happen to drop down there.
Yeah, and that's one of the cool aspects of this game, is that even though it can be quite repetitive because you are doing multiple runs, I don't think we even covered that at all, is that each day starts, you have a fixed number of steps. If you run out of steps the day, you have to end the day. But you might very well, depending on the layout of how you place the rooms, you might run into a dead end and not be able to take additional steps at all. So you can always quit a day anytime you want to from a certain menu. You can just say, I'm calling quits for the day. And the most of the time, resources do not carry over between day to day. So you get a new set of refreshed steps. Money doesn't carry over. Gems do not carry over in most cases. Pretty much everything I say, there's an exception to it somewhere or another, but in most cases you don't. So that's the roguelike nature of the game, is you're doing multiple runs. Some of them are going to be really fruitful, and you're going to make a lot of progress, and a lot of them are not going to be fruitful at all, and you're going to kind of crash into the dead end. So that's kind of the shape of the game.
Yeah, I mean, you're immediately given this very clear goal: reach the 46th room. But it will very quickly become apparent that is both much harder than it initially seems, and also not perhaps the end of your goals. But in terms of trying to get there and beyond, you will very soon develop several smaller goals that you're trying to reach, and whether you're focusing on one or the other, or just exploring to see what you find, is all going to be restricted by these various resources, basically. And it's quite interesting in terms of thinking about most roguelikes, like if I like Binding of Isaac or Hades, in that they all have this element of randomness that will affect the difficulty of your run. Like you'll get a particular weapon or combo of weapons that will make your run a lot easier. But ultimately, whether you succeed or fail is going to come down to skill. Like you're going to come down to combat arenas or something, basically. Here, your success or failure comes down completely, largely, to those resources. You'll fail because you just lost enough steps, or because you don't have enough keys, or any one of these resources can be a fail point, basically. Or if all of the rooms you draft are dead ends, there's literally nowhere to draft from, that's going to be a failure. So there's quite a lot of ways to fail in this game and then start again. I mean, at least at first, you are often making some progress on the puzzle element, if not towards the ultimate goal, and revealing more information. But that was something tricky to reconcile, is just the number of ways you can fail at this game.
Yeah, and that was the kind of like the debate going on with this game right now. It seems like a lot of people are really into this game in a big way. A lot of people are saying game of the year, yada yada, amazing game, whatnot. And a lot of other people are saying, what are you guys talking about? This game is so broken. The RNG is off the wall. Most of the time, the complaint seems to be that, a fixed adventure game like Myst, for instance, Riven. We played, like we were talking about Maniac Mansion the other day. Has a fixed beginning and an end. You might be able to change some variables, like the characters you enter into the castle or the equipment you might bring into the adventure with. But there's usually, the point is you're trying to connect part A with part B, which unlocks, answer C or something like that. And in this game, it's very much the same case, that you might have key A and lock A, and then they're supposed to unlock each other. But because of the random nature of the game, you might find the first part, and you don't find the second part, the room that you actually want to put that piece into to unlock to make progress.
It's like that Monopoly McDonald's board where you're always getting the two two parts of I don't even know what the regions in Monopoly are, but you get two of the three, and the third one you just can't find it, right?
Or Electric Railway or something. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Or the paddle pop sticks.
Right. So you might have solved the puzzle. You need these two parts to make it happen, but just with the roll of the dice, with the shuffling of the cards, you might not see those combinations of things come up. So that's really kind of the ups and downs of it. You're going to have really fruitful runs, and most of the time you're going to not. And there's good things about that too. I think one of the things that we're ignoring when we compare it to traditional adventure games is that traditional adventure games, when you hit a brick wall, like that's it. Like that, there's no working a way around it. Whereas in this game, if you hit a brick wall, the next run might offer you slightly different things, objects, might give you slightly different rooms to look at, might give you a different clue, like a written note that might have additional information, or you might see a new tool that you didn't know lets you do this. Every different reset gives you more of the meta puzzle. So not only are there specific individual puzzles that happen within rooms with specific items and objects, but there's a larger overall puzzle that goes beyond one run. So you kind of have to think of it as an overarching thing. And this kind of game, the reason why it's a rogue light as opposed to a rogue like is because you do carry things forward. Not only do you carry forward those stipends of money or whatnot, or additional footsteps, those are things that can be unlocked. You also carry knowledge with you.
And that's Brainia.
That's right. That's the thing that will allow you to make progress. And I didn't bring it, but I think most people that play this game will be writing notes down.
Yes, where's mine here? I have quite a number of pages in my notebook here, diagrams, lists of codes, and whatnot. It's hard to know what you need to take notes of in this game, though. Where the puzzle begins and ends. But I guess before we get into the puzzles, let's wrap up on some of the roguelite elements. And I want to discuss how the drafting mechanics. I'm not sure what that adds entirely here, because you're given your three options, and curiously, the developer has their background in like a Magic the Gathering fan site, I believe, and most of this game was funded from that. So obviously that element is coming from the board game side of things, drafting a selection of cards almost. What I found though is there wasn't a lot of depth or strategy to how you do that. There are some techniques you can use to make your way easier and set yourself up for future success, but ultimately there wasn't a lot in terms of synergy. There's a couple of green rooms that will synergize with each other. There's a couple of bedrooms that will synergize with each other, but largely enough, there wasn't a lot of decision making in terms of the drafting tactics to really make that particularly satisfying.
There is the aspect of spatiality. So one thing to consider is that, yes, every time you cross into an open threshold, so walk between a door essentially, to an undiscovered area beyond that door, you choose between one of three doors. You might have collected these kind of reroll dice, which are actually kind of nice. They will let you skip the selection of three
Fairly
doors,
rare though.
3 rooms, right? And then maybe choose 3 more rooms. But that will potentially save you from running into a dead end or an undesired room combination. And another factor to consider is that the type of rooms you get dealt varies depending on how high a rank you are in the floor plan of the
they're like
mansion.
rarities of room as well.
Right. So you get dealt the most basic, most common rooms in the first rank, the first row essentially that you're building, and then each one progressively is a more complex one or a more potentially expensive one to unlock or a potentially painful one to face because there's sort of these kind of red zinger rooms
have like
as
a
well.
downside to that. They all have lots of exits, but a downside, like you lose
They have
half
a
of your
penalty.
steps, or some of the rooms you drafted from that are invisible, like a mask. You can't tell what room it is.
Yeah. And that's the cool aspect of the game is that there are these types of rooms. So there are orange corridors, and there's blue standard rooms, and then there are green gardens, and then there's purple bedrooms and things like that. So the as you make choices earlier on, you can mildly affect the type of rooms you receive later on. So early on, there's a room, I think it's called, I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, but there's a type, I'll just say there's a type of room that will allow you to draft more rare rooms later as you draft. So that's something that you can unlock. There's also situations where there's room pairings. So if you unlock this room, you will guarantee that the next room will be the second part of the pair, or that you're most likely to receive another type of room as you explore later on. Or I mentioned those rows and columns. There's certain squares on those that layout where a certain type of room is more likely to show up as well. You learn these sorts of ins and outs as you explore the game, and I think it's a lot of it is just risk and reward. Yeah, you're pulling from this limited pool of 6 or 9 cards in the first 3 ranks, but the sequence and the order in which you do it, you are rolling the dice and you have to kind of deal with that.
I think that's the thing. Like there is strategy, and you'll literally find strategy guides in the universe of the game. I think largely you tend to find them too late to be of use. Like you've already discovered most of these things for yourself by the time you find these books in game. But I do think the depth of that strategy doesn't really justify the amount of RNG that goes on top of it. And it largely to me feels like a distraction from what I want to be focusing on in this game, and just makes everything take so much longer in terms of hoping that I get the right setup. There's so many layers of randomization going on top of this drafting mechanic, like whether I have enough keys or gems and other like footsteps and so on to really get in the way of what little strategy there is with the drafting.
I think that people are going to approach this game in wanting a few different things. So some people are going to approach it in a very kind of like board gamey optimization perspective, which is like, let me get to my goal as efficiently, numbers wise, as possible. So let me retain all my resources efficiently and elegantly get to the end space. Like just say like the game of life, let me get there before the other guys get there or before my expiration date runs out. And another sort of player is going to want to play this game as a unraveling a mystery. So there is actually a larger plot outside of just that premise that we told you about, and you do get kind of dealt out like little tidbits of knowledge as you play the game. And like I said, like you can't learn this all in one run. You have to learn it over multiple runs. So one type of player might look at a run that is mechanically a failure as a bit of a stepping stone, right? Because they learn more about the story. They might have even seen one of the cool but rare cutscenes where like quite a bit of background info is added, or they found a new book that adds new layers to it. So I think people, depending on the type of player you are, you're going to see different rewards. And as a result, a run and having a run inadvertently end on you is going to feel differently to that player or another.
I mean, I've spoken before multiple times about how I'm becoming a little cynical and about the state of game loops and forcing you to repeat things over and over and hoping to get the right success. Balatro, for example, I'm quite immune to, and other games that just feel like they're largely wasting my time. And obviously, a lot of people are going to eat this up, but it feels like it's pulling on that addiction element again. It's like, oh, I didn't get it this run, but maybe the next run, just one more run. Just that whole structure feels designed to pull that gambling itch in ways that I don't find particularly satisfying.
I mean, I've heard your perspective on that before, but I think you're downplaying a lot of things. This is not like literally pulling a handle and seeing three cherries or not. You're experiencing.
I mean, there is literally at one point in this game.
You are experiencing different runs and seeing different things and making choices each run that you make. So
Sometimes,
it's not optimization. Optimization is not the point, or not entirely the point of this game.
Yes.
And if it was, then there's plenty of other games that will be played. Like mystery and unraveling that mystery is a considerable part of this game. It actually isn't like, it doesn't have to be for many players. That's the thing. Like a lot of people can give or leave or take the mystery aspect of it. It's definitely there. Some people will enjoy that more. And I think that they're going to enjoy unraveling some things piece by piece. And efficiency, I don't think, is top of mind for all of those players. So I don't think I'm like way over to the mystery loving side or another. I like the efficiency and optimization puzzle side of it too. So I think I find myself kind of wavering between those two extremes of that spectrum. And as a result, I quite enjoy the balance of it, the balancing of those aspects.
I didn't mind it at first. I quite enjoyed the sort of the breadcrumbs. Oh, here's a new bit I can pick out. Here's a new clue. Here's a new thread I can pull on. Every time you're finding something new, a new page in your notebook. But eventually, you're going to get to the point where you actually want to start solving these damn puzzles, and then the RNG starts getting in the way. And but at the point I had all the pieces I needed to get to room 46. I knew exactly what I needed to do. It then took me 4 more runs, each of which are like half an hour to an hour, to actually get all the pieces to line up in such a way that I got there. Like I know how to solve the puzzle. It took me 3 hours to actually plug it in. And I've spoken, that's a big pet peeve of mine in puzzle games broadly, is where you see the solution and then you have to actually go and plug this key here and this key here and move these blocks back and forth. And once I've solved it, I just want to plug it in and be done. Right? I have zero patience for games wasting my time in that way.
Yeah, you're probably more of like a Outer Worlds fan.
Outer Wilds
fan, where like the puzzle, the pieces are there to be solved, right? You can actually speedrun it and slot things in the right order once you've unlocked the knowledge to do so.
Yes, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and those sorts of games exist, so absolutely you should play those more if those are more to your liking. I'm just saying not everyone has the same
people are eating this game up.
Of things that you are looking for, so they will probably enjoy kind of being doled out these little tidbits.
And I know there are some challenges here, that there are some achievements, shall we say, late game, that I've seen people say they ran 50 days. They ran like 50 attempts running through this to get this one thing to line up. And I don't have that time. I would not have finished this game if I wasn't unemployed right now. So people are quoting 100 hours to solve this game, and it doesn't need to be that long. There are other more interesting ways they could have done to provide restrictions, whether like the Outer Wilds time limit, or just like some kind of randomization that wasn't reset constantly and starting you from square one again.
Yeah, I just don't see what the alternative would be. Just turn the random off. It would be a very different game.
Like, I don't want to critique what this game isn't, but like you could have the rooms moving around, but having more control over it rather than setting from you back to square one every day. But I don't know. Perhaps that's an opportunity to start talking about how those puzzles start fitting into this.
Yeah, or we could hold some stuff back behind the spoiler wall and talk about the dessert first. What do you think about that?
I think we can cover some of the basic puzzle elements, at least how the game approaches puzzles, perhaps.
Yeah, we can a bit. I don't really think we need to explore too deeply into the puzzles, but if you want to just kind of cover some generals, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to talk largely about some of the breadth of what you're going to be doing in this game, in terms of it, at least for the first segment, in terms of hitting credits, getting to the room 46. Most of what you're actually finding is keys, both literally and figuratively. Most of the solutions are largely finding a piece of information in room A and then plugging it into room B, as you said. And you're not really doing any lateral thinking, largely, to at least to get to that first sort of level of solving this game. It's mostly just finding the right information and plugging it in. So I think there is an interesting. It is very satisfying. Like, just plugging keys into locks. There is a very satisfying moment to that. It does feel a little bit like a sort of Where's Waldo, just like observation puzzle, largely, more than anything, more than a lateral thinking puzzle in that sense.
I think that's true to a point. I think that's true as in the overarching structure of the game, as in you just need to unlock a certain amount of doors. Yes, absolutely. If you can't keep unlocking those doors, then certainly you're going to run into a brick wall. But I think within those rooms that you discover, and then you're gonna find that there's actually larger spaces that are not necessarily constrained to a room, let's just say.
Mm.
I think in some of those areas, you're going to find a range of puzzles that are not just find part A and put it in part B. You're going to pretty much run the gamut of the tried and true puzzle formats, as in you're going to see cipher codes, you're going to see box pushing puzzles, you're going to see the old the old water tubes puzzles, you're going to see
Cryptic crossword puzzles.
absolutely. You're going to see pretty much every
Mm.
trick in the book of classical adventure games. And I think, like, I don't have a complaint about that, because that gets me sort of excited that those old chestnuts are being pulled out of the pantry there. I like the variety. I like the variety that's there. And a lot of the times, blessedly, if you solve a type of puzzle, it remains solved in the continual additional runs. For instance, there's a sort of like a room where you have to switch. There's a steam room, basically, and the path of the steam is going through pipes, and you switch the dials to divert to this direction or that direction or this direction and that direction. You solve it by pushing a bunch of different switches dozens of different ways, and eventually get into the pathway that you want to. Once you've solved it once, you don't have to solve it again. Thank goodness for
And
that.
yet there are others that you do have to solve every time, like certain symmetries, like computer terminals,
Hmm.
interfacing with those, or like interfacing with various mechanical objects in this game. You have to redo every single run, largely, or at least
Yeah.
not every run, but like if you're trying to achieve a certain thing. And I find that incredibly slow and laborious. Like, you got to wait for that computer to
Yeah.
boot up every time.
There's actually this fun exercise that is called something like experiments or something, is where if you do action type A, you will get reward B. And you can choose the different combinations that happen each run if you happen to find that room. And I thought that was pretty cool. That was enjoyable. And what was I just reminded of? There's the box puzzle.
Yes.
That's really early on, and maybe we should talk a little bit about that.
I mean, should we say that for spoilers?
Sure, let's
Yeah,
save that
okay.
for spoiler.
'Cause-
But I will say about that box puzzle, while the structure of it is the same every time, the specific permutation of it is different.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't memorize solutions. Yeah. I mean, the one thing I just wanted to say, though, is, like, as satisfying as it is plugging keys into locks, literally and figuratively. The thing I struggled with was being in a room, seeing as a puzzle that needs to solve, and not knowing, do I have all the information I need? Is all the information in this room, and I just need to think harder about it, or is it in this other room that I've not found yet? And like, I don't know. This is a rare room. I'm not sure. It might be 10 more runs before I find this room again. I don't want to miss the chance to solve it. So it's hard to know how close I am. And a couple of times I did have to look up a solution, largely just to know, am I on the right track? Or am I wasting my time here? Do I just need to wait till I find something else?
Hmm. Yeah, well, let's just say this, that you can, without giving away any specifics at all, there is like a wealth of puzzles, a wealth of rooms, a wealth of different combinations of things that you can solve in this game, but you don't need to solve all of them to reach the end goal.
Yes.
And I don't think that that's a spoiler to say. I think that's intentional in the design, that you can reach room 46 without finding the pin code for every locked box.
So getting to that point is largely just an exercise of observation. Getting to that room 46, seeing credits, is largely just a Where's Waldo puzzle. Anything more than that is going to be beyond credits.
Yeah, and the lining up of those fruitful combinations that you mentioned, that I felt like I reached the end of the game relatively early, as in I was kind of surprised that it happened. It's because I had 1 or 2 runs right before I solved the game that I was just like on fire. And I don't think that's because I'm a particularly amazing adventure game player. I think I just like really lucked out that I got to run through some of those more meatier puzzles like all in a row, and I was really like engaged at that point, because at that point I wasn't dealing with the RNG. I was actually solving a puzzle game. And funny enough, I beat the game, I rolled credits, and I don't think it's a spoiler to say that you can continue to explore the mansion. Because I didn't solve the majority of the puzzles. I didn't solve so many things. I didn't discover so many things. And I was pleased that the game didn't like force that upon you. There's like large areas of the game that I didn't entirely fully access, and that does give me some incentive to look back on the game. But funny enough, the next like 5 or so runs after having those hot hands, I was just like hitting brick wall after brick wall after brick wall.
Yeah, it's interesting because I love a roguelite with an off ramp. Like I've seen the arc of what it's got to offer. I don't need to keep playing it ad infinitum. I saw the credits. The fever is broken. I can quit the game. But then, there was that one puzzle I never solved. I should go back and look at that.
Yeah,
I did find it. I keep
absolutely.
telling myself that I was done, but then I keep getting that itch again. But then at the same time, I keep hitting more threads as well. And I think this game is best.
Is that a bad thing? I don't know. It sounds like you're complaining. I don't know what you're complaining about.
I think this game is at its best when you don't have that clear goal to work towards and you're in that exploratory mode. Almost like it's a very archaeological sense of like, like a jigsaw. You pick up this puzzle piece. Where does this fit in with everything else? How does it plug into this other information I have? I'll set it aside for now and until I find something that plugs into it. And I think that's quite satisfying. But the moment you start hitting those walls and like, I haven't found all the edge pieces. I keep failing these runs. I keep hitting these walls where I can't find anything more meaningful other than waiting for RNG to focus on one particular thing. And I think I'm going through these peaks and valleys, and I've quit a couple of times, and I've tried going back, but I don't know. I think I'm largely done with this. And I think ultimately that's my issue, is that eventually you're just going to hit a wall in this game. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I saw credits. I saw most of what this game has to offer, but quitting this game is largely you're going to be getting frustrated and just not being able to figure something out and just, okay, that's enough. I'm done with it.
Yeah, I totally hear you. And I like, in fact, encourage players that don't have like a high tolerance of patience or feel like don't appreciate games wasting their time, quote unquote, they should feel free to take that off ramp as soon as it's available. And I think this game will let you do that. Like, you should be able to complete this game without too much time invested. And if you complete it that first time and you're good with it, great. But I see the additional options to continue exploring as added value. I don't see how that's a problem. And in fact, when you compare this to a traditional 3D graphical adventure game like Myst, like Riven, where there is a fixed setup, and if you hit a brick wall in there, you have no recourse to take that off ramp. You just hit a dead end and that's it. And that's your experience of Myst. Is you got stuck on the, I don't know, the telescope puzzle, and then that's it, right? That player from that era of adventure game just had that option and no other. So this game is already a, innovative evolution of that genre, and it mixes in elements of other genres like visual novels, like adventure stories, like roguelite. And you're right, the roguelite aspects are really front loaded in this. I think there probably will be ways to mitigate it down the road. I don't think it's a spoiler to say that there are ways to manipulate the rooms that you will see in the future, in every subsequent run that you see in the future. So there are ways to manipulate the game to ease some of that RNG a bit. Maybe there's even ways to pass items between runs, for instance. That's quite cool.
Yeah, and I do really like the puzzles that are here. I think they are satisfying to pick at, even though some of them are beyond me. But I really enjoy the non-linear way that it approaches puzzles. That you can choose what to focus on to some degree at least. And I just really find that roguelike elements a complete distraction. I would have liked to explore these different threads at my own pace and like follow the threads I want to. And like it still does. Like if you hit a wall, you can go and find something else. But then I'm so the arbitrary restrictions of the roguelike elements are becoming more of an issue than the actual knowledge restrictions. And to me, those two things were really at odds. And there could have been a much denser, enjoyable experience here without making everything take 5 times longer than it needs to, because I just don't have enough keys this run.
Yeah, I think that you and I largely share the same opinion, and I agree with everything you're saying. It just, what you're saying, I agree exists. It just doesn't bother me as much as it bothers you.
Yeah. And there's another game that I think is that I've been playing. I think is incredibly flawed as well, and might be my game of the year. Lots of people are saying the same thing about this game. Like it is absolutely scratching an itch for a lot of people. I just don't have the time that it demands to drag everything out piece by piece, coin by coin.
You're not going to tell us what that game is?
No, maybe next episode.
Maybe next episode. Okay. Well, with that said, I think we should probably roll into dessert, and maybe we'll have a short spoiler discussion at the end.
Sure, absolutely.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Would you like to start us off with your dessert segment?
Yes. So last week I spoke about the Sprawl trilogy, the sort of cyberpunk science fiction novels, and keeping in a slightly similar vein, my wife and I just finished watching season 7 of Black Mirror. So this is the sort of sci-fi anthology series from Charlie Brooker. Basically, each episode is a completely different story, completely different cast of characters, exploring ideas of largely tech dystopia. They've all largely had bummer endings. That trend doesn't necessarily change here. I mean, have you watched Black Mirror, Mark? Like any of the other seasons?
No. I historically am not a big fan of what are they, sort of
Anthologies?
Anthology shows like
Twilight Zone?
Twilight Zone and there's like a number of them. I think there was one on Fox for a while there. But everything I've heard of Black Mirror sounds like something I would enjoy, so I should probably give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, I've reading through like a lot of sci-fi short stories. They are able to explore so many fascinating concepts of how we interact with tech. I do think that Black Mirror particularly has started leaning too much into magical thinking. Like everything in this show is solved with a little nubbin on your temple. You stick it on and it creates AI, or it scans all your memories, or it does any number of things just with that little nubbin every time. And when in reality, the way we interact with tech is so much clunkier and also so much dumber. Like we are going into a far more stupid tech apocalypse right now, and I don't what this show thinks of as being a bummer. I don't think is really that valid anymore. We are approaching what it was originally envisioning in like the first season but just in a far stupider way. But there are some good episodes here. I think there's a couple in particular that really I think transcend that. One particular called Eulogy with Paul Giamatti, and I think that really encapsulates the name of the show. Black Mirror is the screen of your phone reflecting humanity back onto you, right? And how it's not about the tech; it's about how the tech enables humanity to express itself in some interesting ways and explore how we relate to each other and our memories. That episode in particular was big in digging into memories and how we remember things from our past and regrets and etc. And I think that was really excellent and had some much more subtle acting in a show that very often relies on overacting. I shall say some excellent actors. There was some great like Peter Capaldi had an interesting performance, very over the top, shall we say, in one of the previous episodes. There was one that was basically the Peter Capaldi episode was called Playthings, I think, and was about a computer game becoming sentient. It was called Thronglets, which feels like it was a play on like Ooblets or something, or Spore, the sort of godlike games, envisioning something in which that becomes sentient. But I think leading up to it's a lot of lead up to a twist, and then sort of stops before it actually gets interesting in exploring those ideas. There was one more episode called USS Callister, I think Into Infinity, because this was a sequel to a previous episode. It was basically like an MMO Star Trek setting. And I don't think it really does anything new or different, but it does just having that ensemble sort of Star Trek setting is always fun, with a great cast of characters, and it's an MMO sort of culture mixed with Star Trek bridge crew vibes. That was a fun episode, if not necessarily doing anything new.
Yeah, my main problem with anthology shows is that they do shake things up every episode, which is probably there's no continuation generally of plot lines or characters between episode to episode. So that part I don't love, but a lot of people do enjoy that quality about anthology shows. So I totally don't criticize if that's your thing. But I was reminded as you were discussing that about kind of technology and kind of near future concepts and thought provoking philosophical questions. A couple of shows, short running shows that I really appreciate came out not too long ago. Maybe they were a while ago when I think about them now. One of them was called Caprica, the follow up to the new Battlestar Galactica. Did
Yeah, I
you
never
ever
saw
see
that one. I saw Battlestar, but not Caprica. No.
Yeah, Caprica was pretty cool. It had a story about essentially it took place before the the Cylon attack. So cities still existed, the colonies still existed, and it was basically about this like AI researcher and their like daughter or something died, and they basically used this AI technology to recreate the daughter as AI. And that AI daughter had a sort of a life in the sort of the network. So it's pretty much like the stuff that people that are doing right now with AI grief tech. And I thought that was really innovative years ago when that series first came out. And then another one was called the Sarah Connor
yes,
Chronicles,
you mentioned that before. Yeah,
which was a prequel or sequel, I guess, in a way, to the Terminator series, and it dealt with questions about AI. And the cool thing about those series, although they were shortly lived, is that they got to extend those questions. So they weren't just asking them; they were like dealing with the repercussions of those questions that kind of really like Edge of Tomorrow technology sort of brings to mind, and kind of having to deal with it. And I thought that was brave, but sadly, those shows generally end far before their time because I guess networks aren't willing to support that sort of television.
I will say this makes me appreciate shows like Star Trek, where that you can explore a cool sci-fi concept each episode without having to worry about setting up new characters and settings every time. Just get straight into what's new about and what's special about this story.
Right, and the great balance of kind of the peak Star Trek is the sort of like every episode is like Planet of the Week, right? But every now and again, maybe twice or three times a season, they get to expand the story and carry it forward and have a extending arc, sort of like the Borg episodes or the Worf episodes in TNG and things
And there's
like
some real
that.
stinkers there too, to be clear. But
Definitely.
Black Mirror. There's a couple of gems, but largely I think it gets too lost in the sauce of being like this parable, sort of didactic. Wouldn't it be bad if tech does this? Like I don't need any more bummers like this, to be honest.
Yeah, it's all hitting too close to home.
Yeah.
All right, if I may, I'm going to talk about my dessert tidbit, and I'm going to be talking about a manga this time. This time it's called, very different from your subject matter, it's called The Invisible Man and His Soon-to-Be Wife, which I have right here. Got it from the Vancouver Public Library. It is, it's not sci-fi, it's kind of fantasy. So this is a romance manga, essentially. It's rated teen, so there's no like saucy stuff in here. This is like quite suitable for probably like even younger teens, younger tweens even to read. It's ostensibly about adults though and their relationships. It's set in a fantastical world, as in, what does the description say? This world is inhabited by humans, monsters, elves, and other races of all kinds. Because one of the titular characters, the Invisible Man, is like the Universal Pictures Invisible Man type. You see his outfit.
A Hotel Transylvania situation.
Kind of, yeah. Except like monsters are not strange. They're like totally everyday. They're very well known things. And his soon-to-be wife is a mundane human, but his human girlfriend is blind. So she's just a human, but she doesn't have the sight. So him being invisible doesn't bother her one bit. So it's really an interesting romance set up that way. And other than those fantasy aspects, this is 100% modern day Japan. So the main characters are in this kind of detective agency, and one maybe questionable thing is that the dude, the leading man, is the president of the detective agency, and the woman, his love interest, is his employee. But it's not really sleazy or anything like that. It doesn't come across. It's very, very wholesome, let's just say. And other workplace characters. One of them is a cat lady detective, was sort of this like kick-ass kind of more action-oriented detective that works with them, and this like kind of like surly human male data analyst sort of guy that works in the office as well, and he's gay and he has a male partner, but other than that, there's nothing outlandish going on there. And the core themes of this series are really wholesome, and I love. It's not all too sweet either. There's some sort of like overtones which are really quite fascinating. So this manga has I'm on volume 5 out of 6 that are available right now, and apparently this year they're going to release an animated series.
Oh, cool.
Maybe just in Japan. I'm not sure if it's in English either, but you can get the volumes from Seven Seas Entertainment, and the author and illustrator is named Iwato Bineko. But you can easily get this in English. And it's got really beautiful art, full color cover and back. And it's got this sort of like tritone insides, which I really like. Every page is black and white, but like a tone work there. And that, I guess, helps the Invisible Man character sort of stand out, because you see his hidden parts and this and that. What's the best part about this series is that, well, the couple is just very endearing. They're absolutely adorable, and they fulfill the theme of the book, which is diversity and understanding. So
how does it go about sort of escaping the tropes of fantasy racism in that regard?
It does have fantasy racism, but the implications of it are very much like real world racism.
Yeah.
It's about real world intolerance. So this isn't like fantasy racism and imagine if racism, except people were mean to elves instead of humans. It's like, yeah, people are mean to elves, but they're also mean to blind humans too, right? They're mean to people for different reasons. They misunderstand people for different reasons. And they think that certain types of people must behave in certain ways because they were told that by, I don't know, this schoolyard chum or something to that effect. So the absolutely is there, but it's not really so melodramatic. It's treated in a really mundane way. It just feels like a world that makes sense, but is really interesting for the fact that it's very imaginative. So the scenarios that come up are really interesting. I told you that the workplace romance takes place in a detective agency. So not only are they building their relationship, but they also have cases where they have to solve crimes, and the crimes involve mundane humans and fantastic creatures as well. So each of those cases involve the themes of misunderstanding each other, assuming that certain types of people must have committed a crime because there's this sort of character and that sort of character. But as the chapters proceed, they learn to not maybe jump to conclusions, not judge so harshly, think rationally, actually try and come to an understanding about each other. And it's quite, I'll say it again, it's quite wholesome, kind of heartwarming in this age where things tend to be really, really cynical.
Hmm.
So I really love that about this series, is that it kind of, it's not all roses and sunshine. Like both of the main characters have dealt with adversity in their lives, and the adversity that some of the fantastical characters play, can be sad at sometimes, but they're treated in a really earnest way, in a fascinating way. So if you like fantasy and you like romance, well, this might be really interesting too, but in a different way than you're used to, because it's not all about, D&D style, romance on being swept away by a prince on horseback. It's not that at all.
Excellent. It's not about being a fantasy. It's just being in that world
It
without
happens
having
to be
to.
a fantasy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, reminded us of almost like Discworld, almost. Obviously, much more of a comedy, but it's like very much about this melting pot of different races and vampires ghosts. But it's also just reflecting real world, real world anxieties, basically, and using fantasy to reflect our own our own issues. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And we talked about Star Trek as well.
Mm,
That the themes are also diversity and understanding each other, right?
mm,
The hope, the golden desire that, hopefully the people watching it have, is that, well, there can be diverse people. We can come to understanding, work together, and achieve incredible things if we, just try and trust each other. And this shares that quality. So I really like this series, and it's just cute. It's just really cute, funny. It's definitely comedy as much or more than it is romance as well. So fascinating. It's just my kind of book to be reading right now.
awesome. Okay, shall we close the book?
Yeah, are we talking about spoilers at all, or
Yeah, we
do
can
we
do that
feel like
after we wrap things up. But
all
let's
right?
say goodbye to all those spoiler reverse people.
Let's
So,
just say it. Let's do it.
if you'd like to, if you have any questions or comments on today's games or other topics, you can contact us at omnigamersclub@gmail.com or at our website omnigamers.club.
And if you haven't caught us yet, check us out on YouTube. We post videos of each episode that goes out of since episode, I don't know, near the more recent ones, let's just say the past 20 or so episodes. Not all the old ones are there. And if you want to catch the older ones, you're going to have to check us out on a podcatcher of your choosing. We are like and subscribe and comment on either the podcatcher of your choice or YouTube. We love to see feedback. It inspires us to keep going.
Always appreciated. And you can also find us over at Bluesky, where you can catch other updates. I am at Board Game Feast.
And I am at OmniGamer Mark on Bluesky.
Excellent. Well, for those not staying with us through the spoiler curtain, remember to have a balanced diet of games.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
And for those still here, let's talk behind the spoiler wall. Here's where the klaxons go off. We're talking spoilers for Blueprints.
Yes. Oh, where do we start?
I
Favorite
don't.
room.
Yeah, I don't want to go like
Yeah.
so in depth on this.
No.
Maybe just a bit. Maybe like, what about your frustrations? Like, what mechanism just ticks you off?
So I enjoyed just exploring, finding new threads until I had all the pieces that I needed to solve, get to room 46. Okay, I know I need to pull one of these three levers. I know I need to get the key and get down to the basement. I know I've got all of that. I know everything I need to do. But then it took like 5 more runs to get all the pieces to line up and actually get there. And then you get to room 46, you see credits, you don't get to go into the room. You have to do the whole thing again to actually see the contents of the room.
Yeah, is that the case? I guess that is the case. Yeah, I mean, do you have to actually unlock the basement to get to the through the antechamber?
I think you can either get through the basement through the fountain or through the foundation.
Yeah, I
There's
did
2 ways to get
unlock
down
both.
there, and I think it's going to depend on where your foundation is as to how easy that is to access. My
Yeah,
foundation was real deep; it was like right adjacent to the antechamber, which
pretty much the
can
same for
yeah.
me. Mine was like maybe 2 ranks down, but pretty
Okay.
much right in the same central
Hmm.
column. So that was I didn't realize what decision I was making when I placed it there.
Exactly. Yeah, and you don't know. Like the game can throw you these traps, basically. Like with the first time you draft certain rooms, like oh, this just took away half of my steps, or this like drafting a room for the first
Well,
time
that one they
can
tell you
ruin a
about.
run.
That
Well,
one they do
yeah,
tell you about.
yeah. But others you don't like the freezer, for example. The freezer ruined a run for me because I didn't know what it was, and
Oh, but you can get around that one way.
curiously, just before we recorded, I did one last one to see what I could do, and by complete happen chance, I defrosted the freezer. Like,
Hmm.
this is one of my big goals I'm working towards for so long. I finally defrosted it, and it was another red herring. Like, I felt it was a clue in there to access the computer, and it wasn't the right one. So I still need to find something else.
So we're sort of jumping past the point. Like we already
Mm.
said, the fountain. So maybe we didn't say that you can go outside of the front door
Mm.
into areas that are not rooms in the mansion, and that's very important. First is this sort of like kind of driveway area, right? Just right over in
Mm.
front of the house.
Mm.
The fountain's right there, but there's also additional areas. There's an area off to the right if you're looking south, and
Mhm.
then there's an area off to the left if you're looking south, which like continues where the car drives on. I guess the car can go through multiple ways. There's like a garage that will eventually go
It's always going to be
further
on the
out.
left wall, though, right? And
Yeah,
that's another point to like wasting time. Something that you have to do every run is you have to walk out the front door and over to the outside room and draft that, and all the way back
yeah.
to the foyer.
There's
And like,
that one room outside
yeah,
of the garage, basically off to that area to the right as you look south. I guess
mm.
I should just call that the west side. And that I generally always go to that first. Is that what you do? You go to that first
Basically,
before?
yeah. Sometimes I like draft my 3 rooms first, depending on what goal I have. But again, that's just the way it's wasting my time having to go all the way out there and back again, and you lose like 5 steps doing so.
I mean, 5 steps. Like, what's really the
Yeah.
point? Like, you
So it's
can
more time.
easily.
Time is the issue for me. It's
I
just
don't know. You're just really caught up on time. Like, don't you enjoy
time
playing
is
games?
valuable, man. I don't know.
It is valuable, but that's why you're
Other games
playing
we playing.
games. I don't know. I don't look at life that way. It's like if I don't enjoy the game, don't play the game.
Mm.
Sure, but I don't judge a game based on whether it takes time. Games take time, right? So I don't know. The steps I think that are involved aren't so bad, at least to get to that outside area.
Mm.
I think the options that are in that room are pretty fascinating. It's only like what 4 or 5 room types
There's
that
a
show up in that
few,
area.
yeah, but they can tie into some of the synergies in really fascinating
Definitely,
ways. Like there's
definitely.
one, for example, I think it's called the Hovel. No, there's one that increases the number of dig spots
Yes.
in the thing. And then I found like the powered up shovel, and I was just digging like crazy and getting 5 gems every time, and like awesome, this is great. And then nothing to spend the gems, no way to save the gems unless you get
Yeah,
this one.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
when you can break the roguelike elements, you often don't have anything to actually sink it into.
Yeah. And then there's the area off to the east of the entrance, which
Mm.
contains a bunch of things, including the let's just say the what is that? Like the lookout? There's a
Mm.
lookout area where you might have lit up torches, and then if you light up the 4 torches, you get something special. There's the locked door that if you unlock, you can access well, first of all, there's a mine area
No, right,
with a
yes.
couple of secrets. And then there's a little tent with not much going on there. There's the orchard, which is somewhat important as well.
That increases your steps.
Your steps.
You start with
that's
70
right.
steps instead of 50, which is huge.
Yeah, that definitely. I found that the steps weren't that precious in the end. Is that I was never really hard pressed for steps.
There are ways around it, like the dining room,
sure.
but you have to plan accordingly.
Yeah, so steps are definitely welcome to have. Money was definitely crucial because that could unlock tools. But yeah, further to the east area, there's the room with the computer stuff.
Yeah, the grotto. Yeah,
and then there's the tunnel, the dark tunnel.
Oh yeah, I haven't done that yet.
I haven't done a lot there, but you can you can easily walk up to it and see that it's dark. Yeah. So inside, like, there's a bunch of different strategies. I don't think it's well worth it to cover all of them, but like, I feel like there's more variety of rooms that are coming up. First of all, if you unlock the classroom option, then you will see a whole different type of rooms inside the mansion.
What tier of classroom? I've only gotten to class 2, and I think there's 8 of them.
Yeah, I think there's something unlocks if you unlock 6 tiers, perhaps.
Okay.
But I've only got to tier 2 as well.
And all of those, I mean, the 2 that I've seen so far, basically give you the solution for some other big puzzle, both of which I'd already figured out. Yeah. But there are other, like, if you're really struggling, you might just find a solution somewhere else. But that's not always the case.
and those are obviously rooms just to convey information, right? So that's kind of what I was trying to get at in the main part of this talk, where, like, there's like layers. There's layers to this information, and if you want to kind of pursue those mysteries, those choices are there for you. And yeah, definitely, you can't guarantee that you can follow the exact same thread you wanted to pursue, on the subsequent run. It might take you multiple runs, but part of that excites me, that I don't exactly know what I'm going to unravel, or I won't exactly know that every little tidbit is going to be important till I see it myself.
I mean, in my penultimate run, I found the gallery for the first time. I'm not sure if you found that.
I don't think I've seen the gallery.
And it was a whole level of, it was, when I said cryptic crossword, it was literally one of those with these visual puzzles, and it's a whole another level of complexity in visual word puzzles that I was not prepared for. And like, you look at it, and I don't know how deep I need to go. How deep do I need to think about this? Because everything up till now has been a Where's Waldo observation puzzle. This is on a whole different level. The game has not prepared me for this, basically.
Yeah. How much of the underground stuff did you do?
I mean, I got to the the lever you pull to unlock room 46, right? I know there's more down there. I know I need to lower the reservoir some more. Because it took me forever to line up the pump.
The water,
power the pump, and it took me a dozen runs.
That took me forever too. I don't understand that diagram, so I just pull the lock.
Yeah, it was not intuitive. And then there's some other room I can power with the moving box puzzle. There's something you can power in there, but I haven't lined it up yet. I'm not sure how to power that.
Yeah, I finished that one, and there's the rotating gears.
Okay. Oh, yes. Yeah. I figured that out. Yeah. But then there's like 7 more rooms beyond there with more keys. So...
Yeah, and then there's the elevator from the front area. Did you do that one with the 4?
Oh, yes. There's a chess puzzle, and I'm waiting. I need to line. I think I know how to solve the chess puzzle. I'm still going to map everything out in the meta first.
Here's my final admission to make: is that I have not unlocked one safe.
Oh, interesting.
I've not unlocked a single safe. I've unlocked a lot of boxes. Those three boxes with 2 truths and 1 lie, or two lies and 1 truth.
I've only failed that twice. I've gotten most of them right.
Yeah, those are no problem. Those are very easy. I appreciate how there's been no repeats so far. So clearly they found like a whole database of them and entered them all in. I like that. But yeah, I have not entered one correct answer in one safe. Oh, there's the dartboard puzzle as well, which is just math.
The maths, which it just gets a bit repetitive.
Yeah, that is repetitive.
In terms of the safes, have you solved the 2 images? Like there's the 2 pictures in every room. Have you figured that out?
No. I know that's important, but I haven't.
That helps you get
found
there.
out why.
It is very laborious. Like, again, it's just it's visual puzzles. Go to every room, look at the two pictures. It was satisfying to fill that out. It didn't. It helps in a very abstract way, shall we say?
Okay.
But it is one of those cool aha moments, like Tunic. That's the puzzle. I've been looking at this the whole game, and that's part of the puzzle.
Yeah, they hid it. They hid it in plain sight.
Yeah,
I like that aspect of it. So for me, like, my Game Pass is done, so I don't have no capacity, no access to Blueprints because I didn't buy it. But I've kind of had my fill for now.
Yeah.
But I'm open to returning to it. Totally.
I've still got that itch, but I value my time too much to just waste another 10 runs trying to defrost the freezer.
Let yourself walk away.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Nowadays I allow myself to walk away from games often, and sometimes I just don't return. Most of the times I don't return, but sometimes I do, and it's good. I left a huge gap for Indiana Jones, but I just finished it recently. Right the day before my Game Pass ended. So at some point we'll talk about that, maybe when the war is over and the boycott is over, hopefully. But yeah, that's fine. I got plenty of other games to play.
Yeah. I don't have time for games trying to addict me and get me hooked in that way anymore. Like, just give me.
Are they?
Give me the focused experience, and don't like make it take as long as it needs to.
The focused experience. What is that? It's like
a 3-hour game, please.
It's only bothering you that games take time.
I know.
Right? Like,
but this isn't like this.
Games are not meant to be blasted through.
It's hard to know what you're getting yourself into with this game. You don't know how deep the puzzles go. You don't know how long it's going to be. But hey, if you just want to see credits, then this is a satisfying experience.
Yeah, I think people should determine for themselves what value for game means. And that's not always reach the credits, right? I think, if like Balatro is like 10 runs for you, great. That's it. Or if like, Satisfactory is like 700 hours for you, great. But like, every game is different, and like hours spent is going to be a different barometer for every person.
I know I need to stop complaining about Balatro every episode. Maybe I just don't like video games anymore. I don't know.
You don't like certain types of video games, which everyone doesn't like certain types of video games. So to each their own.
Excellent. Well,
raise a glass to that.
Yeah, I think this is a fascinating design experiment, this game. I don't think it works, but it's playing with some excellent ideas.
I think it definitely works. Yeah. It definitely works enough to be the buzz game that everyone's talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And lots of people enjoy it. And if one person enjoys it, then it works. And if dozens of people enjoy it, then it's working great. Awesome. All right. Another game in the can. Another episode in the can.
Okay. Well, we've already said goodbye. So,
last spoiler wall. Bye.